Ladies, glad you came to join us this last night. We always save the best for last as far as speakers go, so this night is no different. We have Dr. Michelle Arnold with us. She is with UK and is a veterinary specialist, and tonight she is going to be talking about vaccination protocols and keeping our beef cattle healthy. Doc, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Well, welcome to the last session. I don't know about being the best one, but nonetheless, I'm going to probably cut my video off just to give us a little more bandwidth. Plus, I'm not really happy with this camera on my computer. I don't think it's very flattering, but nonetheless, what I wanted to do tonight was talk about choosing vaccines. And I'll tell you why, is because it actually is one of the most complicated things that we have to do, is figure out which one to use, because there's so many. And speaking of women versus men, that there are differences, and one of them is that men aren't always very detail oriented, I guess is a good way to put that. So, you know, it's kind of left up to us a lot of times to look at the details and figure out what's important and what you need to know. So, and vaccines are difficult, and I'll be truthful that often I still work on it a lot. You know, when I get a vaccine, I'm going to sit down and read it and read what's in it, because you can't rely on the names. The names will deceive you sometimes. So you really have to know what you're looking for. So I tried to break this down and make it kind of straightforward, let you see how the different labels look. So we'll go over this, and I'll try to not make it complicated, but it can get that way. So most people think about vaccinating their mature adult cows once a year. You know, you do those annual vaccinations, whether you do it in the spring or the fall. So that's probably the first thing you need to ask yourself, or ask when you're deciding on your vaccine. When will you give your yearly vaccines to the mature cattle? And if you answer that question with, you're going to do it prior to breeding, 4 to 6 weeks pre-breeding, so you know all the cows are open, all the females are open, not pregnant, then the answer is really pretty straightforward. You're going to use a modified live virus vaccine, because they work better and they give you a lot more flexibility when it comes time to vaccinate your calves. So let me explain that a little bit further. So modified live virus vaccines. So that, and they usually, I denote that as MLV, for modified live virus. So they are better. They work better than a killed vaccine, because they stimulate both cell-mediated and humoral immunity. So that would be that picture up in the top right-hand corner. You've got the cell-mediated immunity and the humoral B cells, and that's like two arms of the immune system. So a modified live is going to work on both of those arms, whereas a killed vaccine only hits that lower one, the humoral or the B cells. So that's one thing that's better. They give a much longer duration of action than a killed vaccine. They're stronger and more complete protection, because a modified live virus vaccine means they took that virus and they changed it. They modified it so it doesn't cause disease, but it still works like a virus. It still goes into cells, it replicates, it's alive. So it's kind of mimicking a natural infection. So you get better. It's obviously a much better and stronger protection. There are risks involved with modified live vaccines, which is why some people shy away from them. So because they will cause abortion if you give it in a pregnant cow. And if you use it close to time to breed, when you're getting up close, like 2 to 3 weeks prior to breeding, that's not the time to use a modified live vaccine. They can interfere with estrous cycles and with formation of the egg. So you don't want to use it close to time to breed. I don't like using it in pregnant cows at all. There are some varieties of modified live vaccine where it's labeled for pregnant cows with a certain warning, but I'll cover that in more detail shortly. So what do adult cattle need? And when I talk about modified live virus versus killed virus, these are the viruses we're talking about. So the first one is infectious bovine rhinotracheitis, or IBR. And I put those in quotations, that infectious, because when you look at the label of a vaccine, it doesn't have infectious on there. When you look at the label, it's going to say bovine rhinotracheitis, and you won't see IBR either. So we use certain terms, vaccine companies use others. So that's why I try to kind of make it what you're going to see. So again, the first one's infectious bovine rhinotracheitis. This one will cause abortion in cattle. The second one is bovine viral diarrhea. Some of the companies call it bovine virus diarrhea. Third one is parainfluenza 3. And the fourth virus we deal with is bovine respiratory syncytial virus, or BRSV. Of those 4 viruses that we deal with, by far and away, BVD is the worst one. It's the most common one we see. It will cause abortion. It has a host of problems associated with it, and it's pretty common. The others, not so much. Especially IBR is really not one of those we see in this part of the world, in Kentucky. There's other places in the United States where they see it more so out west, but of those 4 viruses, again, BVD is one we really want to think about, protecting our cattle. The next thing we'll want to vaccinate for are the 5 strains of leptospirosis. And those are the five serovars is what they're called. And this will also often be represented as L5 in the name. And the last one I have down there is, well, not last, but Campylobacter fetus, or vibriosis, is a sexually transmitted disease. Often it can be carried by the bull. Doesn't mean many bulls have it, and I've probably only seen 2 or 3 cases of Vibrio in my career. But nonetheless, if you use bulls, we recommend having Vibrio in the vaccine. And then as far as blackleg vaccine for adult cattle, up to age 2, we definitely recommend using blackleg. Beyond that, it really depends. It really depends on your farm. But I will tell you this, if I had cattle today with what I know about blackleg, I would vaccinate every year for it, because it's really one of those, it's a fascinating disease to talk about, because it can go 30, 50 years and not see a case on a farm, and then all of a sudden there it is again. So it's one of these you can't ignore. It can come back at any time, because it's blackleg is carried by, well, not carried, but caused by a bacteria that lives as a spore in the soil. So anything that brings the soil to the surface, like any kind of dozer work or building a pond, things like that can bring those spores to the surface. The other thing I thought was fascinating when I was researching for the last article I wrote on blackleg was anytime there's soil contamination, like if you're making baleage, and raking it and it gets a lot of soil contamination, you can get the spores in that and have cases of blackleg. So, when they're not even out on pasture. So those are things to bear in mind. I think using blackleg annually, even in the adult cows, is still a good idea. So let's look at this. And this is kind of the basis of this lecture, is I wanted you to see that there are so many vaccines out there and you got to know what you're looking for. So these are the Zoetis products here. And these are their modified live vaccines. So they have 3 modified live vaccines that they offer. Bovishield Gold FP5L5HB. The one over on the right is at PregGuard FP10, which is an older vaccine. That's been around a while. And then on the bottom, Bovishield Gold FP5VL5HB. So how on earth do you figure out what you need to buy? So Vibrio, not in that top left-hand one. And you can see little things they do, like they put a dairy cow on that box, because most dairies use artificial insemination. They don't use bulls. So this is one, and they put a dairy cow on there. So it kind of triggers in my mind, well, they don't have Vibrio in there. You notice that there's no V in the name. And the word we're looking for is Campylobacter, and it's not on the label. So top left, we're not going to use because there's no Vibrio. And the one on the right, PregGuard 10, only has 3 viruses: bovine rhinotracheitis, the BVD, and the parainfluenza, but they don't have BRSV. But they do have Vibrio in there. So those 2 vaccines I wouldn't choose. If I didn't have to choose them, if I would go for the one on the bottom, which is the Bovishield Gold FP5VL5HB, because it's going to have all the viruses. It's going to have the Vibrio and going to have the lepto. And now we have another thing to talk about, which is this HB. What's that? So HB is a type of leptospirosis called Harjobovis. And it is one that if you can get HB in your vaccine, I'd strongly recommend you get it. Most of these companies make one with HB and one without. The HB vaccines are going to be more expensive every time, but they are good. They're good. And Harjobovis is something that we need to prevent. It's really hard to treat, but if we vaccinate regularly with an HB vaccine, we have good results. So I would definitely, if I can buy HB vaccine, I will. So let's go to another example. So that was Zoetis products. The next one I have is Boehringer Ingelheim. They make a lot of good vaccines. These are all 3 modified live vaccines that Boehringer produces. So again, how do you decide? How do you decide what you're going to buy? You've got a Pyramid 10, you got Express FP10, and on the bottom is Express FP5VL5. So Boehringer doesn't have, I don't think they even offer an HB product. And don't hold me to that, but I couldn't find one that when I was looking. So we don't have HB when we're dealing with Boehringer Ingelheim. 2 of these products have FP in the name: Express FP10, Express FP5. So is FP important? Is that something you want to focus on or not? FP stands for fetal protection, and it is protecting the fetus from the BVD virus. Remember, I told you BVD is one that causes a lot of problems for us in Kentucky. You're, as a cow-calf producer, that's going to be really important that you have FP in the name of your vaccine. You want that fetal protection. in order for a company to put that on, they have to do a lot of testing, putting that through USDA in order to get that on the label. So I look for that. That's what I want to see when I vaccinate, is have an FP. The other thing to notice is only one of these has Vibrio in it. And that's the one on the bottom, Express FP5 VL5. And again, most of the companies will put a V in the name if it has Vibrio in there, just to make it easier to find. Not all of them, believe me, not all, but generally speaking, that's a pretty good rule of thumb. Pyramid 10 up there in the left is, it does not have Vibrio in there. It's not an FP vaccine. This is one that it's almost one that they made not as an afterthought necessarily, but they have Pyramid 5, which is in that bottle on the left-hand side. So Pyramid 5, and then they paired that with Lepto. So that's kind of one that they put together. But it's, again, nothing really special about that Pyramid 10. Although it's well recognized, that name Pyramid is one that a lot of people are familiar with. But if I had to choose for my own cattle, for a cow-calf operation, I would use the Express FP5 VL5. So here's just a couple more examples of modified live vaccines that are out there. Merck makes the Vista line. So you've got the top left is Vista 5 L5. Again, no Vibrio in there. Vista 5 VL5 sub-Q on the right does have the Vibrio. So that one's pretty straightforward. The one at the bottom, the Titanium 5 L5 HB, no Vibrio in there. And but it does have an HB product. So there's, like I said, lots and lots of vaccines out there. You want to make sure you got the 4 viruses and the 5 strains of Lepto. Get Vibrio if you can. So why does it matter? Why does it matter what you use as far as modified live versus killed? One of the things that's really important is when it comes time to vaccinate your calves. So when you're getting ready to vaccinate calves, especially if you're going to do a preconditioning program before they're weaned, you have a lot more flexibility because there is a warning. There's always a warning label when you vaccinate calves nursing pregnant cows. So you can use a modified live virus vaccine in the calf that's nursing a pregnant cow only if that calf's dam was vaccinated within the last year with a modified live virus vaccine. If you didn't do that or you don't know, then you have to switch to a killed product. And that's really important. It's actually, you want to try to do as much modified live virus in calves as possible because you got to get that immunity up, before they go into weaning and a backgrounding operation. So from my standpoint, that's really important. I want to have my cows vaccinated with modified live. So when it comes time to vaccinate my calves, I can give them modified live virus. And it makes it a whole lot easier. So let me give you an example here. This would be like if you were vaccinating your calves pre-weaning, you wanted to get them ready for, let's say, a CPH sale. And so you have to give them, they need 2 rounds of virus vaccine. They'll need 1 round of Pastorella, and they'll need 2 rounds of Blacklet for just about any preconditioning. All right, so if you were vaccinating your calves in their first round, and this was pre-weaning, and you had not vaccinated your cows with modified live, then this is what happens to you. You can only use the killed vaccine, which is up in the top left, Cattle Master, and a black leg, but it removes the modified live products on the bottom. You can't use those because you can have problems if you vaccinate the calves with a modified live. The cow can abort if she has not had a modified live. And I know that gets confusing, lots of words there. But just be aware of that it really cuts your choices down when you don't use modified live in the cow herd. And then the second round, if you were vaccinating your calves, this would be after weaning, then you would have to switch to modified live. All right, so let's go back to the cows because that's really what I wanted to focus on tonight. So when we give your mature cows their annual vaccines, if you answer sometime when I have the time and help available, then you have to answer a second question. Could any of the cows be pregnant now, or will the bull be turned in within 30 days? If yes, then you got to choose a killed vaccine. So I hope that made sense. So if you're not going to plan your vaccine to be pre-breeding, then look at your herd that you're vaccinating. If anybody could be pregnant or the bull's going to be turned in soon, let's use a killed vaccine instead. So you're dealing with the same viruses. This time, instead of being live and they replicate just like a regular virus does, excuse me, these are dead. They have taken these viruses and killed them. They kill them, mix them with a chemical, and then put them in for a vaccine. So they're very safe. They're not going to cause abortion, but they also don't work as well. They don't last as long. They don't create a real good immune response. But they are very safe and definitely popular. I mean, we see a lot of these products used. Like Triangle is well known, Virus Shield. A lot of these products now have, like Triangle does the HB fraction that we talked about. So that, and let me give you another example here on the next page. So here we are with these are two killed virus vaccines. Elanco recently bought out both of these companies. So, the Virus Shield used to be a Novartis company and made by Novartis. The MasterGuard was made by AgriLabs. So Elanco bought both of these out and stuck their name on there. But, there's not, they actually are both killed vaccines and they don't look anything alike, coming out of the same company. So, and that has happened a lot just because there's been so many mergers and so forth. We get a lot of these vaccines that really don't have any, they don't seem to work together. I don't know how you want to say it. They just don't look alike, like they come from the same company. But that is just the way it is now with so many acquisitions. So let's look at these. They are both labeled as killed virus vaccines. Virus Shield 6 plus VL5HB is on the left. Again, we've got our 4 viruses at the top: the rhinotracheitis, virus diarrhea, parainfluenza 3, respiratory syncytial virus, and it says they're killed, right? And then you got Campylobacter fetus, which is Vibrio, and then all of the strains of lepto, the serovars of lepto. On the right, on MasterGuard 10 HB, this is a tricky one. I mean, this is one that will trick you up because of the way they have the box. You've got your virus is the top, and then it says modified live and killed. So what's that mean? You know what? And then we go in all the leptobacterins. So the thing about MasterGuard, if you look over at the bottles on the right, you figure out that the PI3 and the respiratory syncytial virus, that's the modified live part. And the bottle on the far right, the rhinotracheitis virus and BBD is killed. Those two are the ones that cause abortion. So because those two are killed, we call this a killed vaccine because it's safe. It's safe in pregnant cattle. So that's a tricky one. I'll be honest with you. I have to look at that one several times to make sure. But if you read the label on these, MasterGuard will tell you, and on the label, it's safe for pregnant cows, no problem. And it is safe. But that's just one of the things you have to kind of get to know what you're doing when you're selecting vaccines. You got to know what you're looking for. Or if you have questions, know what questions to ask is really important. So replacement heifers, I put this in here just to remind you that replacement heifers, we ought to give them 2 rounds of the viral respiratory, the Vibrio, and lepto. Whereas with mature cows, we just give them 1 round a year. Those replacement heifers really need 2 shots of it is better. Really gets their immune system boosted up before they get bred. And so that it's going to be your IBR, your BVD, BRSV, PI3. And in heifers, no question, we ought to use modified live in those open heifers. Your heifers should all be open. There should be no worries about anything pregnant. So use that modified live in the heifers if at all possible. Use FP, the ones with fetal protection. It's going to be really important for heifers. Cows, as cows age, their immune systems mature and they've been exposed to a lot of things. But heifers are young and they haven't. So that's where our vaccines really, really come into play. So we want to use, again, the FP vaccines if we can find them. If we're going to use bulls, let's include Vibrio in the vaccine. If you're going to AI all your heifers, don't worry about Vibrio. Get the leptospirosis, the 5 strains, and HB, if you can find it. Of course, heifers are going to need blackleg. Up until age 2, definitely make sure they get blackleg. And then Pasturella, I'm not going to get into that too much tonight, but it is good to give them 1 round of Pasturella at weaning or before weaning, just to get get those antibodies made. So here I just want to go over a couple of different scenarios here. So you'll see where I'm trying to go. This is these are vaccines made by Behringer. Scenario 1, you're 6 weeks prior to turning the bull in. So which one are you going to pick? And this is mature cows. So here you've got you've got all the BI products and a killed BI, which is your triangle vaccine, which is down in the left on the bottom. So when we're selecting, again, we'll look at Pyramid 10. It's modified live. So yes, that's what we want. There's no FP and no Vibrio. So we're going to kind of put it to the back. We're not going to select it unless we have to. On the right, on the top, we've got the modified live vaccine, which is good. We got FP, which is good. No Vibrio. So we're going to, that's a little better, but we want to look at that bottom one. Modified live vaccine has its fetal protection. FP has Vibrio. So that's the one we're going to go for. Whoops, I did have something else there. Let me go back. So what if 6 weeks, what if we're 6 weeks prior to AI to do an artificial insemination? Then we might want to pick this one up here on the top, the Express FP10. It's modified live, fetal protection, no Vibrio. So what if we calve year round? You know, then that's pretty common in Kentucky to calve year round. And these are all the Zoetis products. So we want to forget about all those modified live vaccines. Don't use those if you're going to calve year round. You're going to go down to to Cattle Master 4 plus VL5. So it's got all the viruses in there. And this is another one that in the title says the virus vaccine modified live and killed virus. And I think that's just very confusing the way they write that, but it is considered a killed virus vaccine and safe to use any stage of pregnancy. So that would be one you would choose down there for the, if you calve year round. So here's kind of the bottom line of all this. There's a lot of subtle differences in vaccines. So you need to know the important differences. The most important one is the difference between modified live vaccine and killed vaccine, and when to use them. I mean, when and when not to use them. After that decision, it often comes down to what products are available for purchase or what's in stock. I had a call not too long ago and someone that always buys a product with Vibrio in there, and they literally couldn't find it anywhere. And I said, you got to get what you can get. So I said, go back to Vibrio again next year, but you could skip a year. It's not going to be, they probably got plenty of protection from prior vaccines. So sometimes it does come down to what you can get your hands on. Trying to use a vaccine with Vibrio if using bulls, try to get that HB, try to get the FP, but it's not the end of the world if you don't. But the modified live versus killed, that one's important. That one's important, and that one you need to know. Another thing about, here's blackleg vaccines, and there's a world of these. I mean, a world of blackleg vaccines. And I think it can also trip you up if you just look at labels. You see let's look at the picture on the left, the UltraVac 7 and the UltraChoice 7. This Clostridium Chauvei, that's Chauvei, Chauvei, that's the blackleg organism. So when we're going to vaccinate it for blackleg, we have to see that on the label. So that's obviously, it's on UltraVac 7, it's on the UltraChoice. If you go on over to, this is Vision 7 with spurs, I got it kind of cut off there. And Barvac has it in there. Well, if you go to this picture on the right, here's Barvac CDT. And here's the Clostridium word again, but I don't see Chauvei anywhere. And that's because that one doesn't have it. You know, that's a clostridial vaccine, but it's for Clostridium perfringens and also has tetanus in there, but no Chauvei. So you have to be careful there again, not to just, some people would go and say, well, this is Barvac. You know, Barvac is blackleg vaccine, and it's not always blackleg vaccine. Look for those key words. The Chauvei is the one that causes blackleg. Here's another one. And this is a busy slide, but I put it in there because this is one that I get lots of questions on OneShot. You know, if you see that, this is a Zoetis product. This one is the original OneShot right here. It was a Pasteurella vaccine. And so it only has Pasteurella in it. Well, then Zoetis combined their OneShot vaccine and their Bovishield, and they got Bovishield Gold OneShot. So that has the viruses and Pasteurella. Then they got even more creative and they combined the OneShot with blackleg. So now we have OneShot Ultra 7. So, and then up at the top, they combined OneShot with just BVD, and they got OneShot BVD. So I see more confusion when you get a product like that that has OneShot in the name, and yet it does 4 different things. So I guess the bottom line is if you got questions, make sure you ask them because they're good ones. Don't ever hesitate not to call or get confirmation from your vet what you're buying. And not all the people that sell these vaccines, for instance, some of the farm supply companies, they don't always know what they're talking about either. So make sure you get good information when you're purchasing your vaccines. Okay, just last thing I want to go over before we're done is Scour's vaccine. And you'll have to forgive me on my pictures there. These are old because again, these companies change names and they change owners, and so I didn't get new pictures of the bottles, but the names of the product are the same. It's just the companies have changed. So Scour's vaccine is one that we give to pregnant cows. We give it to pregnant cows, and when they calve, they make the antibodies that go in the colostrum. So the calves get protection from scours, the things that cause scours, by just nursing. When they get that colostrum when they're first born, they immediately get that protection. So really like Scour's vaccines because I really hate to treat calves with scours. They're hard to treat. It's unrewarding, and you're much better off preventing this if you can. So I like to do this, to just go over this quickly because I think it's a little bit complicated, but it doesn't have to be. So basically, we've got 3 products that are used for Scour vaccines. One is ScourGuard 4KC, which is actually a Zoetis product. Pfizer changed their name to Zoetis for animals, for veterinary stuff. Then we've got Guardian vaccine, which I think now is Merck. I could be wrong about that. Let's see, but nonetheless. And then we've got ScourBoss 9. So those are basically your 3 vaccines. So when I got here, I've got year 1. This means this is the first year they're vaccinated with it. You'll be vaccinating your pregnant heifers. So for pregnant heifers, you have to give 2 doses. 2 doses. And then after that, and when they have their second, third calf, so on, you just give 1 dose a year. But pregnant heifers have to have 2 doses. So what I tried to show here was the difference in timing. These vaccines are different in the way you administer them. So let's look here at ScourBoss 9, given a pregnant heifer. You'll give it 8 to 16 weeks prior to calving, and then revaccinate with ScourBoss 4 weeks prior to calving. So what's that look like? I have here, this would be for heifers calving March 1, okay? So you could actually give ScourBoss anytime from about mid-November up to the end of the year for that first dose. And then the booster dose would be given sometime around February 1st if she's supposed to calve 1st of March. Does that make sense? So you can start ScourBoss really early, like now. If you had cows calving if you had heifers calving in March, you'd want to start your ScourBoss anytime between now and the end of the year. If you use Guardian, it has a little bit different. It says 2 mils, 12 weeks pre-calving, and then booster 3 to 6 weeks after the first dose. So again, if you had them calving March 1, you're going to give that first dose sometime around first week of December. You're going to come back with a second dose sometime in January. And then that's it. Then that would be her protection. Scour Guard is even later. Scour Guard is 2 mils, 3 weeks apart, with a second dose given 3 to 6 weeks before calving. So with Scour Guard, you're probably going to start it sometime around the first week of January, and then follow it up with a second dose in about 3 weeks. So around 1st of February, and then they calve in March. So the only problem with Scour Guard is, since it's so close to time to calve, they're pretty big, trying to get them through the chute. So second years, after that, year 2 and beyond, you're just going to use 1 dose of the product. So Scour Boss would be given 8 to 10 weeks prior to calving. So sometime around Christmas, sometime the holidays, you would give Scour Boss 9 for cattle that are going to calve around 1st of March. Guardian, a little bit later, you're going to hit January, sometime in January. Scour Guard, you're probably going to give end of January, 1st of February. So it just depends on when you're going to give, what time of year you want to vaccinate, or as to which product you would choose. They all do exactly the same thing. They protect the same way. I don't see any difference between those vaccines. This is simply a timing issue of when you want to do it. So it's different. It's different from what I went over earlier, where there was actually differences in the vaccines. Okay, so now that everyone is completely confused, do you have any questions?
If y'all have any questions, you can feel free to unmute yourself or type them into the chat box.
I hope you can look at those things I sent out by email earlier. That should help you. It should help you, as I tried to divide up the products according to their, what they do. If they were killed or modified live, if they had lepto, if they had Vibrio, just to make it more clear.
We have a question, Doc. How long? I'll let you read it in the chat. Tannis toxoid provide immunity?
Let's see here. I gotta find the chat. Where is my chat box? Do you know? Let's see here.
Should hover down at the bottom.
There it is. There it is. I got it. How long does tetanus toxoid provide immunity? Good question. Let's assume that tetanus toxoids require 2 doses to be protective. So if you give the 2 doses of tetanus toxoid, it should give you good protection for a year. And then the directions call for annual revac. So we'll give you protection for a year. Pink eye, when, what, and how? Good question again. Okay, pink eye, when? Right before fly season. You don't want to do it too early. Most of the time, around May is a good time to give the pink eye vaccine. In the list that I sent out is of different types of vaccine, I've got pink eye in there, the different types of pink eye vaccine. I guess there's almost a dozen of them. So whichever one you prefer, they're all very similar again. And how to give pink eye vaccine, I'm not sure about that question. Like injectable is about the only way to do the pink eye vaccine. So if there's something I missed on that question, let me know. All right, I wasn't able to start class on time. I think they did record this, so you can view it later. Yeah, you got that. Yes, Carol's recorded. All right. Anything else?
Some good questions. Anything else? Well, while we're waiting, Doc, I do appreciate you taking time to spend with us this evening. As of right now, we have 19 participants on there, so that's a really good turnout. Ladies,
Good.
just a quick reminder that we will be sending out a survey. Please fill that out. We use the information for future Farm School for Women's. April, do you have any other housekeeping that we need to go over?
The only thing is we actually have 21 on because there is 2 people watching with someone. So it's a little bit better than what the numbers look like on here. Other than that, yeah, I will email out hopefully tomorrow a link to the survey. Again, those that were on early heard me talk about the survey is to kind of gauge about how you all enjoyed this whole program. It'll be, you can rate each session that you've attended. And give us your feedback on that, and also provide us with any updates of anything that you plan to update on your farm or implement due to this program this year. And also if you have updated or implemented any of from the prior year's Farm School for Women programs, if you've done anything based on that, please let us know in that survey as well. And also provide us with information on what you think you would like to possibly hear about and learn about more next year for the 2021 Farm School for Women, because we definitely listen to you all, and we try to do our best to get what the majority of folks are interested in and go with that. So we thank you all so much for attending. I guess right now is your last call for any kind of questions you have for Dr. Arnold.
Well, thanks you all. I am sorry it gets complicated, but I think if you can just kind of keep that in mind of the different types of vaccines and what's important, it will help you out when it comes time to figure out what to order or what you want to buy. Again, there are a world of products out there, so you have to be discerning.
Dr. Arnold, I do have maybe one question. I know I'm not as familiar with like sheep and goats and that kind of thing. Any documents or anything that we can share, any good tips on vaccination protocols for small ruminants?
I'm not sure where one, I don't have one on me at the moment. I can look though. In the Sheep and Goat Development Office, which they have their own website, there's a lot of resources there. That's usually my first place to go if I'm looking for something like that to give out. Don't have a lot of requests for that, I guess, and so it doesn't hit my top priority, but I can see what I can find if that's something that you need.
I know we have a few folks on tonight that do have sheep and goats. And here we do have a question in the chat box. Is there a site for swine vaccinations?
Oh, I wish. That is a really good question, because I was looking for that, and there's almost too much on swine. When you go into places like Iowa State's website, it's just overwhelming. They've got so much information. You can't get any, you can't get any just kind of straightforward what I need for swine for the backyard, for my backyard group. So I don't have a great site. I'd refer you to Iowa State, look through theirs, but most of what we find on swine is for commercial production. And of course you think cattle vaccines are bad, swine are even worse. It's really complicated. So really you have to kind of know what you're after, if you've got just a few in the backyard, or you're going to do, raise a few pigs, or if you're going to, have the reproducing females have sows, and they're all different. So I just encourage you, we can talk about it later if you want to send me an email and tell me what you need, and I'll see what I can find for you. I did work out some kind of basics for myself, and I'll be glad to share with you.
I see that. Yeah, the UK sheep farm, Dr. I always get his last name incorrect. They do a sheep school, and I think they had a couple earlier this year, maybe one. So if anybody's interested in that information, just let one of us agents know. We can provide you with information on when those classes or the sheep.
I don't think he's having them this year. I think they got canceled.
Did they? I thought there might be one before COVID hit.
I think there was, and they had a couple scheduled, but they've had to cancel them. However, we might be able to still get the information for his vaccination protocols.
And I think if you're interested in signing up for the sheep school, he does have an email listserv that you can email your county agent, and we'll make sure you get on it.
Well worth it. Dr. Ely is probably one of the best faculty members at UK. He still wears a tie when he teaches, which is pretty impressive. He comes into the classroom at UK and he's always dressed very well.
Well, ladies, if you don't have any more questions, we hope you enjoyed the 2020 program, Farm School for Women. If you have any questions that you think about tonight, feel free to let your agent know, and we'll get you the answers for you. We do have one of the best extension service in it, and including the best specialists. So if we don't know the answer, we'll make sure you get the correct answer.
All right. Thank you all so much, and enjoy your last week of October, and happy Halloween.
Thanks.
Thanks, Dr. Arnold. Thank you, ladies. Bye.